Greetings. This is Deborah Pratt, aka Ziggy, and you're listening to the Star Bright Project.
Welcome to the Star Bright Project, a Headcast Network podcast about one of the greatest TV shows ever created, Quantum Leap. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Moss. I've been a Quantum Leap fan since 1989. I discovered Quantum Leap through my mother. I was in my room at the time when my mom came in and told me there was a show that I needed to watch since it was about time travel. So I turned on NBC and settled in to watch my first episode. Man, I was hooked. Watched every episode. I rewatched it when it was re-aired on the USA Network and then later on other channels. Joining me is my wife and co-host, Michelle Moss.
Hello. Unlike Mr. TV,
Hey, I resemble that.
I can't say that I had the same experience. I may have seen 2-3 episodes, and what I did see, I thoroughly did enjoy. When I met Aaron, it was one of those moments that surprised him when I told him that I actually knew of the show. Though, I didn't tell him how little I had actually seen. Here it is 14 years later, and now I'm watching each episode in order, one by one, as if it was a new primetime TV show, and I truly am excited. I do hope my inexperience will bring some nostalgia back to some of the old fans as I relive some of the mysteries and ask some questions you may have once asked back when you took your first leap with Sam and the rest of the Star Bright Project crew.
Join us monthly as Michelle and I settle in and watch the entire run of Quantum Leap. I'm the Quantum Leap, expert on the show.
And I'm going to be the one asking a lot of questions, but hopefully helping reignite people's love for the show through a fresh pair of eyes. And we can experience it together on the Star Bright Project podcast.
Hey there, Leapers. Welcome to the Star Bright Project. As usual, I am one of your hosts, Aaron Moss. And as always, joining me is my beautiful wife, Michelle.
Hello. No. Hi.
And also, from the land down under that some people don't think exists, is our friend, Hayden McQueenie.
He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. And he said, I come from a land down under.
Bitchin'.
And yes, we're here to talk about Quantum Leap. This is episode 12 from season 2. It's entitled Animal Frat, directed by Gilbert Chilton, written by some guy named Chris Rubenthal. Oh, maybe Hayden's heard of this guy, I don't know. The leap location and date was Meeks College, somewhere in California, Thursday, October the 19th, 1967. 2 years before I was born. The original air date was January the 3rd of 1990. This was right after Christmas break, back before they had to have a big mid-season finale and mid-season return and all that. They just went away quietly, showed a couple more old episodes, and came back with new episodes. But we do have a synopsis for this one. And once again, for that, I'm going to turn the mic over to my wife, Michelle.
Okay, so one of the times where I did the synopsis, it wasn't the greatest synopsis for what? So help me God. I'm trying this one out. It's a UK site called clivebanks.co.uk. It's a Quantum Leap website. So it says, October 19th, 1967, Sam was a nerd at school, but now he finds that as Newt Wilding Wilton, the most outrageous fraternity jock on campus, he's expected to act like an animal together with his beer-drinking, prank-playing, womanizing buddies of Tau Kappa Beta. Newt attends Meeks College, where he is destined to fail his graduation several times over, while reliving his own wild college days. And his own wild is in italicized, so keep that in mind. As Al informs Sam that he must find a way to prevent an attractive campaigner, Elizabeth Spokane, from planting a bomb in the college chemistry building, a radical protest against the war in Vietnam, which will cause death of a fellow student. However, Elizabeth isn't interested in listening to a guy like Newt, and neither is her jealous compadre, a financial student named Duck. What kind of a name is Duck?
Nickname. What kind of name's Ed?
Well, yeah, but he's a financial student who was so, like, uppity and hippity and...
Who knows where he got the name Duck at? Sometimes.
To be fair,
Yeah.
the best train on Thomas the Tank Engine's name is Duck.
And also in Duck's defense, sometimes you don't get to pick your nicknames. In fact, the best nicknames are the ones you don't get to pick, and someone else gives you that. You know, who knows? Maybe he made love to a duck once and the nickname stuck. We never know.
Or maybe he just likes to duck.
Maybe.
So, guys, this episode, how was it for
Lots
you?
of fun. Lots and lots of fun. I actually have to think maybe GTF Dubs is rewarding Sam a little bit in this one. He essentially leaps in and is immediately given the opportunity for a threesome. Stupid Sam turning it down. Stupid Sam. This was when Sam started to get his bloody, choir boy sort of streak. He was a bit more of a horn dog in season 1, and now we're starting to see Mr. Morality showing up again.
Well, we didn't talk about it, but back in episode 9, the So Help Me God, there was mention that about his choir boy attitude because people were saying that maybe he was banging Delilah, and that's why he was trying to get her off. And when he was talking to Al about that, he's like, "Oh, is it that?" He's
In many ways, trying to get her off.
But he was brought that up to Al, and Al's like, "It was me, yeah, but no, not you." So I mean, it's been mentioned before that he is a choir boy, I guess, as you call him.
Well, I really think though it goes beyond that, because they touch on it a little bit in the episode where he's like, "Was I like this when I was in college?" And Al's like, "You were 16," So I don't think he was.
You were a mega nerd.
Yeah, and so like I don't think the little 16-year-old boy is going to be going to frat houses, and I'm sure there wasn't a lot of people who embraced him into that type of culture per se. The jocks, the frats, the girls. Right. He probably went to school, came home back to mom. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think. I'm sure he didn't live in a dorm. So
I'm sure he did.
You think he did?
Well, he didn't. He couldn't have stayed at home because he went to MIT after being in Elbridge, Indiana.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't know if have they mentioned at this point where he's came from?
Yes, in the pilot.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay, never mind. So yeah. He had to stay in a dorm or something.
Well, I'm sure it was probably something for gifted kids. I'm going to say that. Like, so I don't see like
you see him as the young Sheldon of his time.
Yes.
Had his own dorm room and
yeah, either that or he was with the other guys. They're like, "What are you guys doing?" "Oh, it's a Saturday night. We're coding blah blah blah."
playing D&D.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff. I don't see them. He's more like the hot dog wearing hat guy. What was his name? What was the guy's name?
I'm trying to remember.
The one they were inducting into the thing.
Right.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. I just can't remember his name.
Hags? Was it Hags? I think it was Hags.
But I get what you mean. It's funny you should say that, actually, because maybe at some point we should watch... Okay, we'll do this as a special event, all right, just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
We'll watch the last episode of Season 2 and the first 2 episodes of Season 3. They form a nice... It's not a trilogy, really, but it does form a nice little 3-episode or 3-act sort of arc, which would be great for us to watch. And it's actually really interesting because what you said about how Sam probably would have been is kind of what I would have thought as well. And let's just say it's very, very surprising that it's kind of the opposite.
Then why would they portray him that way? Because he didn't seem like he was very comfortable doing all of that frat guy stuff.
Well, you got to remember he's got a Swiss cheese brain, so he's thinking like an adult without any memories of his own past,
right?
Or any memories of his own past. So he's completely shocked and all this sort of stuff. And Al's also not allowed to tell him much about his own past either. He's been fired from the project for doing so as well. So it's probably just easier for Al to nip it in the bud and say, "Nah, you're a mega nerd." So you know, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And real quick, I had to look it up because it was bugging me. Scooter.
Thank you.
He was bugging me, so I had to look to see what it was. But yeah, it was Scooter.
Scooter, computer, and Mr. Chips. They got the answers at their fingertips.
I pointed this out to Aaron that one of the frat boys is actually Boner from Growing Pains. And I don't know if you're familiar with that 80s show, Growing Pains.
I've seen it, and I remember nothing from it.
Okay. Well, Boner, I gotta tell you this. Boner was like the guy who got Mike Seaver into a lot of trouble. He was really dumb, like super duper dumb. And so he was always doing dumb things. Well, I loved that show growing up. And my mom married my stepdad when I was in 4th grade. And that summer, we had gone to like a market of some sort. And we're sitting in the car. And it was a little like 3-seater El Camino truck. So like it's my dad, myself, and my mom, all like shoulder to shoulder. And my dad said something funny. And I turned around and looked at him with a straight face and said, "You boner." And my dad, who has like at that point had really no experience with kids and still was very nervous, looked at me with like a deer in headlights. And then I followed it up with, "In your wet and wild dreams." At that point, my mother about fell out of the car and was shocked about what I had said. And she pulled me to the side and she's like, "Where did you learn that?" And I said, "From school." And well, the Wet and Wild Dreams thing from school. I had no clue what it meant. I just thought it meant like in your dreams, you know. And then the boner part, I was like, "Well, Boner from Growing Pains, he's stupid." She's like, "That's not what that means." And then she kind of gently explained it to me. And I was horrified and could not look at my dad for the rest of the day. I was so embarrassed. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget his look. I'll never forget the conversation. I could tell you where I was standing. It was that bad. So, yeah.
You know, I have a story that's almost as embarrassing as that. This would have been, you know, probably 15 years ago or something, but I had gone with my mum somewhere, probably to the shops. I don't remember where, but anyway, we could hear this group of teenagers talking, and one of them mentioned a boner. And she says to me, "Hayden, what's a boner?"
Oh, God. Oh, my God. It's what Dad had when he tried to get rid of me.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah. No, and what's sad is that guy ended up dying. He committed suicide or something crazy like that. So, it's just really sad. But, yeah. Back to the show. What'd you guys think of it?
I can just say I think it's just a lot of fun. I do actually like seeing Sam, you know, in this frat house with all these people who really only care about having fun. The pranks are pretty funny. You know, I actually didn't think that, you know, lighting the explosive and flushing it actually was a real prank. I'd only seen it before on The Simpsons and thought it was just something they made up. Oh, but then actually seeing it happen, you know, it was funnier on The Simpsons, though, because at the time, Principal Skinner's mother was on the toilet.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something made up for shows, but it was something that was, again, I wasn't never an attorney, so I'm not sure. But I have heard quite a bit of stories about people supposedly lighting up
cherry bombs in bathrooms. Yeah.
So
I think
the thing is, I don't understand how that works, though, because when you flush it, wouldn't the water put it out?
No. And I know this from playing with fireworks at my uncle's pond. Okay. Us girls were raised to be pyros. When I say us girls, because there was nothing but girls in our family up until like the last cousin. But we would on 4th of July buy fireworks and light them and then throw them in the pond. And you could actually see it. It would actually spin and it would go and actually do its thing before the fuse would actually go out. Okay. So if it's a short enough fuse, it'll actually continue to light until because it's like wax or whatever around the...
Yeah,
Like there's certain something around the actual. If it was just like twine or something, yeah, I'm sure it would go out. But because it's like a chemical or there's something around that actual wick that can keep the spark going.
Right.
So.
I gotcha. Yeah,
But
but
I mean,
I know nothing about fire at all.
But I do like how, speaking of that scene, I do like how when it went off, Al's like, oh, the fuses are quicker nowadays or something like that. And I got sidetracked. I was looking, and no, that is not Boner.
No?
According to IMDb, Boner was never in Quantum Leap. So he wasn't G.I. Joe.
Who Boner was?
Yeah.
Oh.
He doesn't
well, then
Joe,
who is that guy? Because he looked awfully familiar.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure of his name offhand, but yeah, according to IMDb, that is not Boner.
Bummer. I was hoping it was Boner. But yeah, I will say to follow you guys in that scene, I thought it was really fun and it reminded me somewhat of like Porky's or...
Mm-hmm. Well, it's very much based on
an Animal House. Yeah.
I think that's the one I've seen. I don't think I've really seen much of Porky's because I was really young and it was very inappropriate. But I think I've seen most of Animal House. I don't know.
And this is kind of this was kind of based on, like we talked about previously, how a lot of the shows are based on something. Mm-hmm. This was based on Animal House. So if you've seen Animal House, you may have seen this. Well,
I've seen things that are similar to that. Right. So, I mean, the 80s was all about that stuff. Toga parties and, you know. I liked how at the end you had Sam all dressed up in all that gear. And he was making up that speech and he's like, drink with your toes and eat with your, what did he say? And dance with your lips. Yeah. I think that's what it was. Eat with your toes and dance with your lips.
Eat with your fingers, drink with your toes,
and dance with your lips. Yeah. So I thought that was funny. And then that whole speech and just his whole getup was great. The way they had him dressed. And I actually liked his hair in this episode. I actually liked the way he looked in this episode. I don't say that often because I'm always complaining that, you know, they're trying to make him this uber sex symbol, but he looked not like he looked handsome or anything, but I'm just saying I liked his look. I liked his hair this time around. I thought it made him, and I think they did a really good job with that because it did kind of make him feel younger. Yeah. So that was well played by the hair and makeup people. So.
No, that's good. This episode really feels out of place because a lot of things could have been either prevented or gotten through easier if they'd used techniques that they'd been using in previous episodes. Like, first of all, Ziggy was completely useless in this episode again. She kind of gave Sam a general idea of what was going to happen, that a bomb was going to explode and a student would die. Didn't say when the bomb was going to explode. Didn't say who was going to die. Didn't say where the bombs were. None of that. But also, there's a part where Al has to yell after Sam while Sam runs off to try and stop the second bomb, I think it was. And I'm just like, well, Al, why don't you just center in on him? Or why don't you just center in on the victim or anything like that? Right. They literally did that in the previous episode, the Portrait for Troyan episode. So, yeah, I think that this episode must have been planned for earlier on, simply because, you know, they'd kind of written ways out of these conundrums that they were getting into, and definitely later on in the series they would never have been kept in the script, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I don't know if I agree 100% with you, but because I mean, when you're panicking and it's in a situation like that, I could see Al not thinking about centering on him and just yelling at him. I could see human nature doing that. So I see where you're coming from, but I didn't have a problem with it. Let's put it that way.
But even just the lack of information that was coming out.
Yeah, that definitely is.
And the thing is, I actually don't know who the original victim was. Because they kind of make out that it might have been Scooter, because they said it was a student who'd gone back to study, and they actually sent Scooter back to do some errand in that building.
To still the notes. But see, the only reason I don't know if it was Scooter originally, because the only reason they sent Scooter back was to steal the notes because Sam
had just shown this massive aptitude for chemistry.
Well, not only that, but he wouldn't let him cheat off of him.
But the other thing too, there's also a good chance it could have been Duck. Duck might have decided he was going to, end up in the explosion and be a martyr for the cause. He was definitely in the vicinity at the time. And I mean, why wouldn't Ziggy just say who is actually going to end up in the explosion? Because, I mean, if that's the case, then, Sam, especially in his so-called position of power, he could just tell, well, if the victim was Scooter, he could just tell Scooter stay away from there. And then if the bomb still explodes, then at least he's not going to end up dead.
Or it could have been Elizabeth, because she would have been at the party with...
No, it wasn't Elizabeth. I know that, because she went on the run.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Never mind.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah,
I do. But do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. No, I'm not. Yeah, I wasn't disagreeing with
lack of information.
Yeah, well, I wasn't disagreeing with that.
It felt really lazy to me, actually.
Well,
I think this might have been Chris Ruppenthal's. Is it his first episode?
And maybe he was going for trying to keep it a mystery, but like you said, I don't. Yeah.
No, Good Morning Peoria was by Chris Ruppenthal as well. Sorry, I was just thinking out loud. Keep going.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, I'm just trying to think because, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but, and I can see him. Maybe you want to go for the mystery of it, but you are right that in the future Ziggy would have known at least who the victim was. She maybe didn't know where the bomb was at. They could have given him a general area. Well, they did. They said it was in the chemistry lab, but yeah, they would have known who the victim was, unless it was like a kid or something. Maybe the name was withheld from the public due to privacy and all that. But no one we really saw seemed to be underage. I mean, they were all college students, so
maybe 17, perhaps something like that.
So maybe that's. I don't know. I agree with you that that part was. And again, I don't like to call it lazy writing just because I've seen some good work from Chris, but yeah, no, I do agree that was a weak part. And
it could have just been from his lack of experience so far being a writer for Quantum Leap. Maybe a lot of the rules hadn't already been established, and if all these scripts were coming in at a similar time and being shot at a similar time, he wouldn't have had access to the other ones to know what had already been going on.
Or I don't know if...
But I would think, though, that some of the producers like Deborah, for example, would say, oh, in an episode we kind of got around that by doing this, so write it in, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah? Or give a reason why Al can't do it.
And like I said, as far as Al not said, I understand. Again, as I want to do, I can make my way out of that one. But yeah, Ziggy not having the information was, I don't want to say out of place, because as we've talked about before, there's been several times that Ziggy has fallen down on the job, as it were. So,
but look, the other thing I'm wondering, why did everyone have this vendetta against the school? And why do they think that the school was supporting the war? I don't actually understand.
I don't believe that it was a vendetta against the school, because they kind of touched this when he's talking to her, because I feel like, she's like, oh, you gave me the idea by chucking the, whatchamacallit, what was it that they threw that caused
cherry
her?
bomb.
The cherry bombs into the bathroom, and everybody's talking about it. So it was just like her way of, well, I can make the news if I utilize the school as my way of protesting.
But I think Duck made a comment.
She did have that scene in the chemistry class, though, where she's asking, why is the school supporting this illegal war and all that sort of stuff, and trying to cause the debate.
And I think
she definitely had a chip on her shoulder, and I think that a lot of the other students did as well.
It was because of the professor. What the professor was saying, she might have been offended by the professor, and what the professor maybe...
I don't remember what the professor said, though. Was it stated what the professor actually said, though?
No, I think it was insinuated, though, that she was annoyed at that lecture. She was at a lecture at that time.
Yeah, but it didn't come across that she was picking on the lecturer, though. It came across, why is the school supporting
because the school was allowing that lecturer to take place.
Well, all right. Maybe I just have to watch the episode again, but that I don't think ever has been clear.
I thought Duck said something also about the school being complicit.
Yeah, that's the thing. So what did the school actually do to be complicit? That's just what I'm trying to figure out.
I think that they had that lecturer.
So you think more it was the chemistry lecturer that was the problem?
Yeah, I feel like they were already like putting flyers out and everything, and maybe I feel like that had to do with it. Maybe they probably had places where kids could sign up to be, part of the war and that kind of thing. So it could possibly be all of that wrapped up in
See,
one.
what was going on in my head was, especially because this is going on in the chemistry unit, were they making chemical weapons and sending them over for the war or something like that? That was what I was wondering.
That's what I was wondering, if they were doing something like that.
And that's the thing. It was never actually stated. So,
no.
Yeah. And again, that's what I call lazy writing. Yes, there's this, general discontent with what the school's doing, but what's the school actually doing?
Right.
That sort of thing.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah, and the fact that we're not quite sure even talking about, Michelle thinks it's one thing, we think it may be something else, shows that, the script didn't quite put across what the school is doing wrong.
But a lot of the scripts do that. We all have our own opinions on what things are. So why is this one any different than in the other ones?
Because I noticed in this one.
But you see where I'm coming from?
Oh, yeah.
Also,
I'll always say when I see problems in a script.
right? No, I'm
just pointing it out that it's really noticeable in this case.
The one thing I will say about the script, I feel like it was kind of, and I know it's happened before where Sam leaps in and they're like, "Oh, you're supposed to stop her from bombing," and that's what Ziggy says, and then it's, "Oh, you gotta jump in the water, and if you don't do this jump, then you're not gonna leap." Doesn't he only leap when he's done the whatever?
Well, again, they as in Ziggy and Sam and Al don't know. There's no rule book on when he's going to leap.
Okay.
I think what happened, again, my own thoughts on this, is that originally he was there to stop the bombing.
Right.
Because the bomb went off, killed somebody, whoever this mysterious student was. Mm-hmm. And then once they stopped that from happening, time changed. And then in the revised history, Wild Thing jumped in the pool and injured himself. Because originally that probably wouldn't have happened because of the bombing of the school. Things would have been shut down, police would have been involved, and it would have been a big hoopla if the bomb would have went off. So I don't think their fraternity party happened in the real world, or in the first history.
Which is kind of interesting, actually, because it's that idea that nothing actually changes until Sam changes it. So, yes, Sam did change history by, making sure that no one was hurt in the explosions and making sure that the chemistry building didn't get blown up. But then nothing's actually happened. Like, history is still to be written. How can Ziggy come up with this plan that Newt ends up a paraplegic from this stunt when Newt actually hasn't done it? He's not there to do it. So,
and I think that's, and again, I'm a fan of time travel, so I can let that go, because I think that if Sam would have leapt, he would have done it and jumped in and broke his neck. And
so you
Ziggy
think that
updated.
Oh, okay. I think
when
I
it
get
happened.
What you're saying. So maybe there's kind of GTFW keeping track of all the different possible things that are happening, and like there's one sort of timeline where Sam did leap out after he'd stopped the bombings, and that's where Newt would have ended up being paralyzed,
right?
And so GTFW's decided, no, I've got to keep him here to prevent that from happening as well. Is that
correct?
What you're saying?
Kind of, and time changes right away for Ziggy and Al. Well, it has.
No, actually, what happens is
it will.
Nothing actually changes until there's a 100% certainty that something's actually changed, because they will still always exist and still always work in the timeline that they're actually in, as long as there's still a chance that it's going to happen.
But there are, and I'm trying to speak vaguely so it doesn't give spoilers, but there is an episode where we see changes happen right away when something happens to Sam in the past. Bingo?
Well, that's the one I'm talking about as well, and nothing actually changed until it got to the 100%
right, and
certainty that something had actually changed.
And the same thing here. It got to 100% that the bomb wouldn't kill anybody. The bomb would go off in the lab. The lab didn't explode, so the party could continue. So at that point, history was changed, and we were in the second past, if you will, where Wild Thing broke his neck. And so since Sam was still there, he had to stop that from happening also. It was kind of like a ripple effect, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I don't agree, but I see where you're coming from. Again, this is where I get into the idea of lazy writing. You're right. You're probably right that you probably didn't end up being a paraplegic originally before Sam leapt in, because, as you said, they wouldn't be having a party after, a student's died and after, the chemistry building's been blown up and the police are involved and they shut everything down.
So once that stopped, time changed.
So,
but hold on.
And the other reason that I
hold
do
on.
say that...
Hold on.
Sorry, Michelle, go on.
So my thing is, though, that all could have happened simultaneously. He could have jumped at the same time the bomb went off, because it wouldn't have happened later on with him being there. They're waiting for him to show back up, or all those frat people were in that place. Only one person was supposed to die in that bombing.
Right.
But when they all went there, it kind of changed that as far as they all were in there. So had Wild Thing still been at the party, and she would have been at that party, or she was somewhere else, the only person who would have died would have been that kid at that building at that particular time. We can't say whether or not they would have been shut down at that moment.
Well, but what I'm basing it on is that if what you're saying, if he would have jumped at the same time as the explosion happened, or within moments, I think Ziggy would have said, well, there's two things. You got to stop this and also stop him from breaking his neck. That's why I'm thinking
that's what I was thinking as well.
He did one thing.
Again, is Ziggy not giving the information?
Yeah, so that's why I think he was there to stop the bomb. Originally, the bomb went off, the party got stopped, and Wild Thing didn't jump because the party was called off, so he didn't break his neck. Sam was there, he prevented the bombing, so time changed. Ziggy was updated with the new information, and they're like, oh, okay, now according to history,
We up and now the guy's going to hurt himself.
now he's going to jump in and break his neck, and, well, they messed up. They saved history. It's just that...
And how is it the
Wild
fact,
Thing is an
how
idiot.
did he not... I figured because he did a belly flop that he didn't break his neck, but...
Well, actually, I like your idea, Michelle, of it happening simultaneously with the bombing, because it's quite possible that when it does explode, it makes this huge noise, and it stuffs up... Yeah, and Newt either slips or fucks the jump somehow because he's gotten freaked out. Yeah, I actually like your explanation better. But
See, I think it's just he's not very bright, and he didn't jump properly.
I don't know. I don't think necessarily that he's not too bright. Because, I mean, even though that they were party animals and stuff, they were trying to... they wanted to cheat off of him.
Because all of a sudden he showed this remarkable knowledge of, which to me makes it sound like he didn't have this knowledge beforehand.
I don't know. I just feel...
And with the name Wild Thing, and again, maybe it's my own prejudices, but I mean, with the name Wild Thing and being the college jock or whatever he was, and, banging several chicks at the same time, he didn't come across to me as...
the scholarly type?
Yeah. Because again, when they were in whatever the lab was they were earlier, and Sam left to talk to Elizabeth, he told him, well, I'll take notes from you guys later. And they're all like, notes? I don't think that group did a lot of studying, except for how to make cherry bombs explode in toilets and and how to get drunk and things like that. I think they were too busy partying. So I don't think Wild Thing was the smartest student at that school. So I think...
Or at least he could have been very smart. I mean, he did manage to get into uni. But
True.
Then again, he's probably just very, very lazy.
I didn't like the whole, psychoanalytical crap that he was doing with her about the parents thing. I'm sorry. That was, to me, far-fetched. Oh, well, maybe it's because mommy and daddy didn't pay attention to you and blah, blah, blah. I didn't like that.
Well, mind you, this was in retaliation to her doing it to him, though.
Yeah, but he went on and on with it. I could see if he did it, in spite, for a snide remark or whatever, but... it wasn't very snide when he was talking to her at the luau about it. Well, maybe,
Yeah, well, by that stage, they liked each other, so they could joke about it.
I don't think he was joking. He was like, Mommy,
Oh, you can tell the truth, but in a joking way, and everyone realised there's no malice behind it. That's the thing.
I didn't see it as a joke at all.
But, it didn't bother me, so I don't know.
I didn't like that aspect.
But it's interesting you say that, though, because Duck in particular is into the psychoanalysis, and he's like saying to Sam, you're smarter than you look. Deceptively smart people are the most dangerous. That sort of thing. Yeah. I do like how they did throw back to, the fact that Sam did have a brother who died in Vietnam, and he was able to use that as some sort of a reason why he would be interested in stopping the war, and give some better ideas that are more likely to actually have some effect. Yeah, so I did like the fact that they were trying to allude to things that they'd done in the past, which, again, makes me wonder, if they can do that, why can't they do it with Al as well? So, yeah, like what I was talking about before.
Right.
But I do like the callback to Sam's brother. That was
Well, so did I. Yeah, like I say, I always like it when they make mention about things from the in quotes present time, or dealing with Sam or Al and their families.
Yeah. But on the subject of the research and Ziggy being able to give Sam the information, I kind of get the feeling that at the project, the research must take a very, very long time, be really costly to do. Maybe it's just that they're able to find it, but they just haven't found it yet. Maybe that's
right.
But and if they could say something like that, it would, make.
And I think it also, again, like you said, maybe they say it would be better, but I think part of it also depends on where Sam's at. Because there have been episodes where they have mentioned that, we can't find out anything because of reason X, Y, and Z. The hospital burnt down, so we don't have birth certificates or whatever.
The library burnt down.
Things like that. So, I mean, there have been times when they give a reason why they didn't have any information. So,
like I said, it just would have been nice to either have a reason why or to have it actually be shown.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But look, I know that this has actually come off a lot more negative than I'd expected, because I actually really do like the episode.
Oh, so do I. I was happy to see that we had this one coming up.
Because it is a lot of fun. It's got some great music.
Speaking of music, I wanted to ask, is this one of the episodes that you guys are talking about where the music didn't have the rights or whatever, and it would have been different in the DVD?
Well, that happens in most episodes, actually.
But, according to the book.
The big book.
The big book of small print. Thank you for warning me about that, Hayden. No, it was replaced for the Region 1 DVDs.
Yeah, there's at least 3 songs that were replaced in the Region 1
DVDs. It talks about
DVDs.
the actors mouthing along to the words of Louie Louie is off because they changed the song on the Region 1 DVDs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is one where they replaced some of the songs.
Okay.
They replaced La Bamba and Wild Thing.
No. They kept La Bamba and Wild Thing because they're referenced by the characters.
Well, Wild Thing, it says Wild Thing is replaced when used later in the series. So I guess in a different episode they change it out. But so this one here, they left those.
So it must cost money every time they use it.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is. Every time I don't know if it's every time or every different show they use it, they have to pay for it. So yes, this is one that they did change some of the music out.
But that happens in most episodes.
Yeah.
And it is really detrimental. I'm glad that they got around it for future releases.
Yeah, see, we watched this on Blu-ray, so after I got in and watched, I was curious at which songs they changed out, so I was going to throw it on the TV real quick and see, but I couldn't find it on any apps or anything offhand, so...
And I wanted to wait to ask you that question until we were on air, because I was like, I want to know, but I want to wait. There's some things I need to wait. But I'm so worried I'm going to forget my question, so I'm glad I remembered that.
Yeah, actually, it's funny what we were talking about, because in the book as well, in one of the parts of the notes and observations, it actually says, in the original timeline, did Newt ever make it to the party at the end and snap his neck, or was that due to Sam's change in history?
Right.
So, yeah. So even Matt has thought the exact same thing that we did.
Yeah, I still think it was due to the change, but because it wasn't mentioned, but then...
Yeah, like I say, nothing's going to change until something actually does.
Well, but it
Sam
did change.
actually does something to change it.
Sam changed history by stopping the bombing. And
But what I'm saying
is
Newt can't do anything until Newt is back. So if Ziggy's picking up on this change, that Newt's going to break his neck, then maybe that means it's actually originally happened to Sam rather than Newt. And Ziggy's picked up, this is going to happen to you, Sam. Make sure you don't fuck it up this time. Yeah.
Or maybe
it would have been reported as Newt because everyone would see him as Newt, but...
Well, and at that point, Ziggy would have reported... So it could have happened that way, that it could happen to Sam until Al said something, Because, yeah, Ziggy would have pulled out reports that Newt died. And at that point, they weren't sure who was going to be there. So I still like my explanation the best, but I do agree that yours is also possible.
Well, I think mine made the most sense because Sam's the one that's there, not Newt.
Right.
But look, we can argue about this till the cows come home. I don't think we're ever going to get we're never going to get a proper explanation unless we speak to Chris Rippenthal about it.
I was going to say,
and he's probably going to say, for God's sake, it's a TV show from 30 years ago. Move on already.
Get out of your mom's basement and leave me alone, you nerds.
Yeah. No, he is kind enough to talk to us when we want to, but yeah, I think this is just a bit too nitpicky to worry him about.
And it's one of those things that sometimes can make a good thing. It does leave room for discussion, and I mean, I don't think it's detrimental to the show, to the episode, not knowing exactly which way it happened, but it does leave enough for us, geeks to sit around and talk about and ponder.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's
well, that's always a good thing.
But yeah, no, like you said, I really enjoy this episode, even though we've had a lot of bad stuff to say about it, apparently.
Can I ask a question?
I really enjoyed this one. Yes.
It just kind of hit me. Do you feel Sam being the mega nerd that he was, I'm sure he didn't have the most pleasant of experiences with, per se, the jocks? So do you feel he went into this pretty biased being in that body and in the scenarios that he had? And if he was, do you feel like he actually enjoyed it to the extent of the enjoyment that they portrayed?
I'm going to say we need to put a pin in this conversation.
No.
Because it's good.
That's a really good freaking question.
Well, it is, but it also has a lot of spoilers in it. As Hayden mentioned earlier. Your basic question isn't phrased properly because you've got faulty information.
We've got the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah. I mean, me and Hayden have seen this series multiple times, to be generous. Yeah. So we know, like he said, the end of this season, beginning of next season, will answer those questions for you.
No.
Well, look, why don't we just have a fun time where we watch those 3 episodes in succession just for fun? And, this is what should have been the trilogy, let's just say. And the proper trilogy.
I still enjoy the trilogy. I like the trilogy.
Well, you're allowed to be wrong. That's fine.
And the next time I am wrong, I will let you know. I was wrong once before.
But look,
I got divorced.
But look, let's maybe next weekend or something get together and, after you've all had a chance to watch those 3 episodes, I'll be very interested to talk to you about them. What do you think, Michelle?
Fine.
But yeah, we can't really answer that question without talking about those episodes. At least the first 2 of season 3. I mean, you can get by without seeing the last episode of the season, but yeah, especially the first 2.
Well, I actually think we should see that one as well because it is referenced in them.
Oh, it is. I mean, actually, the first episode of season 3 doesn't answer your question, but it changes your question. But all 3 of those episodes are kind of tied together.
You guys are sounding like the Peanuts teachers. Womp, 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 womp.
Well, anyway, Michelle, you shouldn't be whinging. You always want more of a reason to watch Quantum Leap. So, well, I'm giving you permission to watch 3 episodes.
Okay.
Okay. I'll do it then.
Yeah, we can't really answer that question because, the question is not, with what we know about the future of the show, it's not a valid question.
But what I will say to you, though, is Sam seems to be acting more so from his Swiss cheese memory than anything else. So he might have biases, but it's more because of maybe what he's naturally inclined to, more so than his actual experiences.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
Say that again?
He may have some bias,
right?
But it would be from just what he's naturally attuned to, not so much his experiences.
What one would think would happen instead of what actually happened with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think Al was really wrong with what he said when he called him a mega nerd, but he's leaving stuff out, is what it is. And with Sam's Swiss cheese memory, he may not remembering some of this stuff. So,
And Al's not allowed to tell him.
right.
But anyway, Michelle, I actually haven't got to hear much about what you think about the episode yet, so I'm kind of interested. I've just been bitching about it.
Me and Hayden was nerding
Aaron,
off. And
Well, I liked it up until this conversation. Like, I liked it before we started podcasting about it. Now I don't know if I liked it anymore. Like, but no, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot better than the other one we just recently recorded on, which was So Help Me God. Because, like I said in that one, it wasn't so heavily political and all that stuff. It's just, this one was just a story to me. And even though it did have the Vietnam undertone, it wasn't like, you know, it was very lighthearted and had funny moments and fun. And it was neat to see Sam in these different predicaments and Al's really cool star pin on his lapel. And,
I like that pin.
and things like that. Those are the things that I enjoyed. I like, to be honest with you, I'm kind of bummed out that none of these episodes have came close to Creeper McCreeperson episode for me. Like,
Watch the 3 that I suggested.
I'm waiting for it. You know what I mean?
Well, look, I give you permission, you and Aaron, to tonight watch those 3 episodes in a row,
It won't be tonight.
and then we'll discuss them next.
Well, for the
discuss them
record,
next week.
we're halfway through, just a hair over halfway through the season.
Wow.
We're on episode 12 of
We only have
22.
a million other seasons to go. I'm looking at that big book going, oh my gosh.
Well, it's got more than just the series in it, though. It's also got the comics and novels and
You wanna
memorabilia.
plug
And a
the book?
timeline and a whole bunch of other information as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the book really quick.
Hey, Michelle wants to talk about the book really quick since we actually own it now. This is the book that Hayden's been referencing for the last season and a half.
Yeah, Beyond the Mirror Image, which was written by our good friend Matt Dale, who's one of the hosts of the Quantum Leap podcast.
Which we actually talked
yeah.
to on an episode of, where would that appear at?
That was the show and tell, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, you weren't there. Yeah, the show and tell episode. That was a good episode where several other Quantum Leap podcasts got together. And
we
showed
talked
our-
really bad about Hayden.
Well, we always do.
No, it was really good. But Hayden, I will say this. I was very disappointed that you weren't there.
Well, look, I can show you my shit whenever you want. So.
I want to see that. Oh. But yeah, no, and after that, I've been thinking about buying it for a while, but we had some extra money then, so I went and bought the Beyond the Mirror Image, The Observer's Guide to Quantum Leap by Matt Dell. Like I was telling Michelle when I got it, I'm like, oh my God, the print in this is so tiny. I wish Hayden would have warned me.
Even I was shocked
Put your
how
glasses
small
on,
it was.
mister.
What's that, Hayden?
Put your glasses on, mister.
Oh, I have them on. They're still tiny.
I don't even wear glasses, and I was like, wow, that's some small print.
But imagine how much bigger it would have
Oh,
been
yeah.
with bigger print.
Oh yeah, no, this is as they say, chock
Maybe
block
Matt
full.
needs to package a magnifying glass with it.
It's like Pride of Prejudice big.
So pretty damn big. But definitely well worth it. And I
Yes.
promise for version 2, which will be out at some point in the future, I'll do a much better job proofing it this time.
Well, it stops at 705 pages, and there's a few pages after that. So
But the font is like size 4.
so
It's
yeah,
not that small. It'd be probably size 8.
so
Something
yeah,
like that.
it talks about the series, it talks about the comics, the novels, the different memorabilia.
Yep. Lots of fun stuff in it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the
And he's
DVDs.
referenced like as much information as he's been able to get from people behind the scenes. I meant much of it from the Quantum Leap podcast because we've had so many interviews on them. But
Al's-
lots of other places as well.
section of Sal's clothes, Sam's family tree. Michelle was looking through, then she's like, "Oh, Sam's family tree." I'm like, "You may not want to read that.
My gosh, darn it,
May
I
give
can't
spoil-
even look at the book we bought.
That may give spoilers." Pictures of the hand links. It's just full of information.
I highly
Yeah.
recommend those of you who aren't looking for or who don't care about spoilers to get the book. 'Cause even if you do, I think you should get it. It's amazing.
Well, you've got something to read along to after you do go to a new episode.
Well, I've tried to look at the episodes that we've done. Just been, like, oh, okay, cool, So I do that.
But no, we have interviewed Darren Dalton, who played Duck, and we've also interviewed Chris Rippenthal, who wrote the episode. apparently Darren Dalton, when he auditioned, was asked to give a speech about the military as his audition piece. He barged in, gave everyone the speech, and barged back out. It was one of those times where your heart's beating and you're like, what did I do? I should have stayed. But obviously they liked it because they hired him.
And I wonder how much of him barging in and barging out added to the fact they hired him.
Probably.
Because it very much gave that type of characteristic to the character. So I could definitely see him do that. That was great. Do it, bring him back.
Yeah, and sometimes just the way that someone interprets the writing and how they portray it does end up trickling into the actual show.
Yep.
So, yeah. No, that's good.
Michelle, any other thoughts on Animal Frat?
I thought the girl was really pretty. I liked
Yay!
her.
Not too much foreign.
No. I really liked her purse and her earrings and all of that. I was like, ooh, I like that. So.
Oh, you are such a girl.
I am. But
yes,
no,
she is. Oh.
It was enjoyable. I enjoyed it for what it was worth. I loved, like I said, I liked the end scene when he was all dressed up as the god of the luau and painted. Like, I was not expecting that at all. I've seen him be like Don Quixote, and it was like, okay, that's so him, and I'm okay with that. But this was full on, like, different to see him in a. I liked that I saw him in a different light in that regard.
Well, real quick, Stacey Edwards is the gal that played Elizabeth. She was born in 1965, and she's still acting. She got some shows that are still coming out, that's coming out soon. Nothing I guess she was in the TV show Shameless, an episode of How Do We Get Away with Murder. Nothing I've seen, but she's appeared in a lot of things over the years. So, yeah, she's still a working actress. And looking at it, looks like she started acting. She was on Santa Barbara, which was an old school soap opera for a while. And Sons and Daughters she was on for a while. So, in Chicago Hope. So, yeah, she's done a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, no, look, I can't really complain at all about the acting. It was well acted for what they were given to act.
Yeah, and even all our gripes and complaints about, like I say, some of the poor writing in it. Sorry, Chris. He probably didn't listen to me. But no, I really enjoyed this episode, even with its flaws. I mean, sometimes
I did too.
The flaws can make the show go worse or make you not like the show. Talking about it, yes, there was a lot of flaws, but I don't think it affected the episode negatively. Overall. It's kind of like you were talking about when we talked about Thou Shalt Not. I think the sum of the parts was excellent, even with some of the minor quibbles. Whereas, at least for you, for the Thou Shalt Not, the parts of it that were weak really affected the entire episode. So it kind of the same way, but reversed.
This one is definitely greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes.
I'll give it that. And like I said, I don't want to sound really negative about this. I'm just pointing out what I noticed. Because like I said, I do like the episode as well.
Yes.
It is a lot of fun. So, and maybe I shouldn't be saying that it's poor writing or lazy writing. It might just be getting the footing, because Chris wrote quite a few episodes for Quantum Leap, and they are definitely on an upward trajectory.
Well, and something that I was going to ask you earlier and I got sidetracked, forgot about.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if you know or not, but when someone writes this episode, like Chris writes this episode, does someone come in and make changes to it sometimes? I wonder if maybe that happened possibly.
Sometimes, yes. I'll give you an example. I think it was Her Charm, which is a little bit later on in this season. With Her Charm, as an example, what had happened was a story had been suggested and maybe a script had been written, but it didn't quite work. And so, like, if you have a look at the writing credits, it says teleplay by Deborah Pratt and Donald P. Bellisario, story by Paul M. Bellows, Robert Walderstaff, Deborah Pratt, and Donald P. Bellisario. So that one in particular was a really daunting one, Deborah was saying, because each one of those four people had to quickly rewrite one of the acts and get it to her. She took the fourth act, try and put it all together and make it coherent. So, yes, to answer your question, at least at times they do have, like, reviews and rewrites. I don't know about this particular episode. And also it could be, like, a script might be submitted by someone who's not on the writing staff. It might be a new person.
Right.
that one's probably under far more scrutiny than someone who is on the staff.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know about this episode, but I do know that there are reviews and rewrites at times.
And I guess I was just trying to find a way to pull Chris out from underneath the bus, and maybe someone made some changes to a script, and that's where the bad part came from. But because I've heard interviews of Chris over on the Quantum Leap podcast, and he sounds like a good guy. So I was trying to find somebody to pull him out from underneath the bus. But
well, look, we haven't been disrespectful at all.
No, not at all.
You know, you can enjoy something while still being critical of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's called being objective.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but look, I know that I have had some negatives to say about this, but that's just because it was noticeable.
Right.
But overall, as we've said, the sum of the parts... Sorry, I'll say that again. Overall, the total is greater than the sum of the parts. And like you said, the poor bits didn't really affect the flow of the episode.
Right. I think it's kind of stuff when you think about it afterwards, when you've watched it like me and you've watched it a dozen times. Some of these things go, wait a minute, what did that happen? Or who was the one that died originally in the explosion?
Yeah, that's it.
So
yeah, I having said that, I probably enjoyed it much more immensely than I do now originally. Like you said, I've had time to think about it.
Mm-hmm, most definitely. Yeah, no, this is one of the good episodes of Quantum Leap. Well, unless you have any other thoughts, Hayden.
No, that's enough
Michelle?
from me.
Any other thoughts on Animal Frat?
No, I enjoyed it.
Don't throw anything at me. And no, I think we've talked enough about this. Like I say, it was a great episode, in my opinion. Top 20, at least.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely on the positive side,
yes.
even if it did have some problems.
Yes, most definitely. So, next episode. In fact, I was looking at IMDb, and I noticed there was a credit for Troyan in this. And I'm like...
Yeah, the next one is Another Mother. Actually, that reminds me...
Was she in this episode?
From this one.
And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, at the end of Leap. Okay, never mind. I see why she's got an episode credit.
Yeah. But I was also going to say, too, did you notice at the start of this episode, it didn't have like a recap of A Portrait for Troyan, which was the episode beforehand. It had a recap for Kamikaze Kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the reason for that was because what had happened is if they were going to play a repeat, then the episode would leap out into that repeat. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened at the end of A Portrait for Troy, and it leapt into Kamikaze Kid because they were going to play a repeat of Kamikaze Kid. But of course, the people that have been watching continuously would have then realised, oh, we watched Kamikaze Kid last time. That's why they put a recap of it. Yeah. But you'll also notice at the start of Another Mother, that's when we get the generic recaps, or what do we call it, the saga cell.
We'll find out next episode.
That is so that from the next episode on, and that is so that they can more easily put repeats in. Because,
like I said, A Portrait for Troyan was nowadays would be their mid-season break. Back at this time, they just, they took a break for a couple weeks for the holidays, because if they did have an episode to air, they played a rerun, because there was Christmas episodes and specials and holiday specials and all this going on at the time. They didn't want to compete with that with the regular show. So you know what? Let's just throw an episode in there, and they tie it together with the end leap in, leap out. So very much so. All right, well, we're ready.
I just remembered that last minute because you reminded me of Another Mother.
But yeah, no, we'll talk about that next time. Another good episode. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Star Bright Project. Thank you for listening to the Star Bright Project. Join us monthly as we continue leaping with Sam and Al. If you like the show, I recommend buying Quantum Leap on Blu-ray. You can also watch it on the NBC website or app. The only thing on this show that Michelle and I own are our thoughts and opinions. NBC Universal own the rights to Quantum Leap, and any songs that we use are owned by their respective owners. Any clips we use, we're using in good faith for the show. I know this doesn't excuse us legally, but we just want NBC to sue us. We're just big fans of the show and want to share that love with the world. For more podcasting goodness, check out the other shows on the Headcast Network. Head Speaks is released on the first Tuesday of the month, where I talk about comics, TV shows, movies, books, whatever I want, but it's usually geek-related. G.I. Joe, a Royal American Headcast, is normally out the second Tuesday of the month, where a rotating batch of guest hosts and I discuss the G.I. Joe comics and cartoons from the 80s. The third Thursday brings us Task Force X, where I talk about John Ostrander's Suicide Squad and Paul Kupperberg's Checkmate comics, both from the late 80s, early 90s. Finally, the fourth Tuesdays of the month, we have the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour. where I examine the Will Payton Starman comic and the Mark Shaw Manhunter comics. Again, both from the late 80s. Then on Thursdays, I release my second batch of shows, where Michelle shows up on most of them. The first Thursday of the month, I'll be releasing the Star Bright Project, a Quantum Leap podcast, where Michelle and I look at the greatest time travel show in the late 80s and early 90s. Then the second Thursday of the month, look for Retrospect to the 80s. You guessed it, Michelle and myself take a time travel trip back to the greatest decade that was, well, in my opinion. The third Thursday, we'll maybe bring another show, Voyager's Cast, where Michelle, I, and some guests look at the best time travel show from the early 80s. And finally, on the fourth Thursday of the month, I have Bravo Team, where myself and possibly some guest hosts talk about anything G.I. Joe related, not covering the main G.I. Joe show. Also, if you like what I'm doing, please check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/headcastnetwork. If you're enjoying my shows, throw a few bucks in the bin. It'd be most appreciated. But that'll do it for this episode. Join us next time to see where Sam ends up.
Oh boy.